I'd like to call the special meeting of January 28th, council meeting to order. First thing on the, may I get a motion for a change order? Mr. Kadim, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Pia, is there any discussion? If not, I'll just explain a little bit what's going on. They're working on the center school and the asbestos. They ran into a big amount of it, and this is within the budget and the grant, so we're just approving them to move forward. If there's no further questions, I'll call it the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Motion passes 8-0. Number 3, do I have a motion here? Mr. Dancho.
I make a motion to for the resolution regarding tax deferral program for federal employees affected by the government shutdown.
Is there a second? Second by Mr. O'Brien. Is there any discussion? Greg first, and then Mr. Kadim.
Number 2, paragraph D, that tax deferred shall be due and payable without interest no later than 60 days after the date in which individual is no longer an affected employee. Since they're back to work for at least 3 weeks, does that then negate the need for this?
I'll defer to the town attorney.
No, that's an excellent question. Because you still technically have affected employees since they've not all been paid yet. You can have an individual who is still subject to this who had taxes due January 1st to January 31st. Should there be another shutdown, to answer that question, in Connecticut, we cannot enact legislation doing this unless we have the specific approval of the state legislature. They needed to pass a law in Connecticut authorizing municipalities to enter into an ordinance or a resolution deferring taxes just like this one. We have no authority to do that absent legislative mandate.
That's not happened yet.
It has. That's why this appears now. That's why you could not have done this until last week when the state legislature passed this bill and the governor signed it into law. Should there be another shutdown 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whenever from now, it would be up to the state legislature again to introduce legislation, go through committee, vote on it, have the governor sign on it before you can do another resolution.
So we'd need to do a second one if there was a second shutdown.
That's correct, because the state legislation only governed the shutdown of December 22nd, 2018. It defined that as the shutdown. That shutdown is over, but there still are, quote, affected employees because of payments not being issued to everyone as of right now.
Mr. Timoniak, you want to add to that illustrious explanation?
I'll try to do it quick. Earlier this evening, we called legal counsel up at the state capitol to get specifics of whether we should just pull this off of the agenda or not. And he indicated they are still effective employees until they get their first paycheck. Nobody knows at the capitol nor in this room when the paycheck is actually going to get in the bank account. Taxes are due on the 31st, and there's a late period after that. So he said, out of caution, if you are prepared to pass it, pass it. The conversation did come up about a 3-week shutdown from now, and then we came to the realization that this is a legislation which is to allow them to pay their taxes. Well, 3 weeks from now, if the government does shut down, they should have paid their taxes during the time frame it didn't shut down, so we won't be in a situation where they're calling a special session in Hartford to make this type of legislation if there is another shutdown.
Thank you, Mr. Timoniak. Mr. Kadim.
Thank you, Chair. I think you pretty much answered the question, but in terms of how it affects us right here in our town, I mean, statewide, they already put the legislation together so that we can enact what we're doing, which is necessary to keep everyone moving along, paying their bills and surviving. And it doesn't really affect what we're doing with our town. We're just allocating what we already have, correct?
Well, the state legislation allows cities and towns and municipalities to enter into a tax deferral program just like this for federal employees who are affected. If you did nothing, the state statute in and of itself would have no effect on any Stratford resident. It requires Stratford and every other town in Connecticut to have specific legislation or resolutions. It just authorizes
in
them to do
place
that should they
to protect
deem the need to do that, and should they want to do that. The state has not told federal workers that they don't have to pay their taxes and it's deferred. The state has merely said it's up to you, each city and town, to decide whether you want to do this, and if you do, enact your own resolution or ordinances.
Thank you very much.
If there's no further questions, I want to call to vote. All in favor? Aye. Chair votes yes. Motion passes 9-0. Do I have a motion to adjourn? By Mr. Kadim, second by Mr. Pia. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes 9-0. Thank you.